Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, your home for Pittsburgh Penguins news and analysis. You can find us on YouTube at Tip of the Ice-Burgh. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe at that channel, or you can find us anywhere you get your podcast from. I'm your host, Nick Belsky, joined as always by Nick Horwat, and we have actual gameplay to react to. The Penguins opened up their preseason on Saturday with a 7-3 loss to the Buffalo Sabres. But as you should do for preseason games, we'll look at individual performances instead of team performances, because that's what you're supposed to do in the preseason. Talk about where Jesse Puljujarvi stands after his massive game on Saturday night. But before that, we got our first look at a Penguins power play, Horwat. They got 4 units out on the ice yesterday. We'll react to what we saw in the personnel and, of course, what we think going forward as to what the personnel should look like. And then to close things out, we will recap a busy week for one Penguins legend. Let's get started. And let's start with what is going to be the biggest storyline for the Penguins early in this season, and that is the power play. Because last year, we all know how it went, right? 30th ranked power play, despite the fact that they had 3 Hall of Famers on that unit all year long, healthy, out there, and it seemed like they were more inclined to give up goals than to score goals on the power play. It's the biggest area in need of improvement for the Penguins, and they unveiled their first look yesterday at practice. Here are the 4 power play lines, according to Seth Rohrbaugh of the Tribune Review. First power play unit was Crosby, Malkin, Rust, Raquel, and Chris Letang, with, of course, Erik Karlsson still missing time due to an upper body injury. The second unit was Anthony Beauvillier, Michael Bunting, Lars Eller, Kevin Hayes, and Matt Grzelcyk. Third power play unit, Emil Bemstrom, Jimmy Huntington, Jesse Puljujarvi, Valtteri Puustinen, and Philip Kral. And the fourth and final power play unit was Tristan Brose, Avery Hayes, Ville Koivunen, Rutger McGroarty, and Mac Hollowell. Horwat, what are your initial thoughts on these power play lines and the personnel for the Penguins?
Much like my initial thoughts are much like how I'm treating the first preseason game of the year, of just, this is what we got right now. It is nothing to get bent out of shape over. It's also a matter of still preseason action going on. Let's see how it forms whenever there's more of a steady NHL lineup on the ice in front of us. I mean, having that many power play lines too is hilarious, that it almost feels like they're trotting out the NHL lines and then the AHL lines for the power play units. But I'm not taking too much from it, especially with Karlsson not involved to quarterback, likely the first unit. But again, it isn't so much about who's on it personnel wise on unit 1 or unit 2 or AHL 1-2. It's about the system, the setup, and how David Quinn is implementing something new and something that should be more successful than it was last year.
Yeah, now, if you read Taylor Haas of DK Pittsburgh Sports' article, she went around the locker room asking these players about, what is new about this power play outside of, a couple of new faces for the secondary units, Kevin Hayes, Matt Grzelcyk. And a lot of them said, David Quinn's bringing in some fresh ideas. Rickard Rakell said that. Mike Sullivan echoed that sentiment. So we'll have to wait and see what those new elements are, what those new ideas are, and if they end up panning out for the Penguins. But strictly on personnel, the biggest thing that I looked at and the biggest note and takeaway that I had was Rickard Rakell on that top unit in lieu of Michael Bunting. I think we all expected Michael Bunting to be the net front guy for the Penguins power play to start this season. Instead, it's Rust and Rakell that are up there on that top unit. And you could have an argument that either of them should be in front of the net. You could argue that Sidney Crosby, who is one of the best at deflecting pucks, should be in front of the net. You could make the argument that they should sign Joe Pavelski, who is up there, because he is one of the best at redirecting pucks, but he is firmly retired. I think we need to reiterate that for some, because some got a little excited seeing him up at the old UPMC Lemieux complex.
But also wearing the Penguin hat in Dallas.
Yeah, that's
with no involvement to the Penguins in that game or that meeting. That's the one that threw me off a little bit.
I saw somebody, I think it was his agent, commented and said, "It's a nice hat." Like, why is he wearing that hat? It's a nice hat.
And it is, but and again, from the moment someone, I think it was Getzoff that tweeted it, that Joe Pavelski was there. From the moment that tweet went out, I didn't think much of it. It was truly just he's friends with Doug Wilson, who works in the front office.
His kids playing in the USHL showcase that is at the same arena.
Yeah, and then I saw that comment and really went, okay, nothing to see here.
Yeah.
And but then seeing the hat, him wearing a hat of a team he never played for, that's the part that's
funny.
Again,
directly after too.
Yeah. I didn't believe anything was going to happen, but that's the one that made me raise my eyebrows and go, that's an interesting choice.
He just visited the pro shop. That's all. He didn't have to pay for that hat. Let's be honest. But that was a fun storyline as well over the weekend. But back to, the power play stuff. You look at Rickard Rakell, and I think that is the biggest piece to this entire puzzle, because Brian Rust, if he's healthy, we know what Brian Rust is. He's a near 30 goal scorer. Michael Bunting, we still have questions about what he could be in a full season with the Penguins. But Rickard Rakell, we've seen it, and we've seen it go the opposite direction. Now, last year he had the shoulder injury that affected him throughout the season. What does he look like this year? I think when you look at him on the power play specifically, in 2022-23, which was his first full season with the Penguins organization, he scored 28 goals, but 11 of them were on the power play. He led the team in power play goals that season. So while a lot of people were surprised that he was on that unit instead of Michael Bunting, if he can go out there and have a repeat performance from 2 years ago, that's exactly what you're looking for from that fifth member, because you're not going to switch off Crosby. You're not going to switch off Malkin. You're not going to switch off whether it's Letang or Karlsson, likely Karlsson. You're not switching off those three. And you would imagine that Brian Rust, now that he is the best winger, the at least most potent goal-scoring winger on this team, is going to get that first crack at the power play. So that fifth spot is really the only one that's up for debate. It makes sense that Rakell gets that opportunity if they're expecting him to bounce back to what he was 2 years ago.
And that's going to be the key there. It's just if they are expecting him to have that bounce back, and if he can achieve that bounce back, because it didn't look pretty last year, no matter what position he was in, no matter where he was playing in the lineup. But if he can find some sort of rhythm, yeah, absolutely, why not? You're right. He did lead the team in power play goals not that long ago. And again, the power play wasn't, bananas, but that's still a note to keep a close eye on. And, I think having Michael Bunting in that position might pay off a little more. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, his bread and butter is going to be at 5-on-5 play anyway. So who's overly worried about where Michael Bunting plays in the power play? Because also, I know you always tell me to not put a ton of faith into the second unit, but having that ability and having that skill set on the second unit, if they're able to get set up and they don't run and gun, because normally that's what a second unit does a little more often. If they're able to get set up, well, then they have that advantage. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a good problem to have. And it essentially sounds like one of those situations of an all-star lineup needing a second unit for something. It's not all-star line. You know what I'm saying, though. But there are skill sets that are now flooding over into a secondary asset. Yeah.
Yeah. You already kind of referenced it, but you know what I say. If you're relying on your second power play to score goals, that means your first power play has failed. And with this lineup, your first power play cannot fail. But specifically about the net front, you mentioned Bunting. I think the other two options we brought up with Brian Rust and Sidney Crosby, but I don't want them in the net front for obvious reasons. One, I think Brian Rust is somebody who, if he stays healthy, is probably the guy that's going to score the most goals outside of Sidney Crosby. Don't put him in the net front to get chopped down by those big oak trees on opposing teams' power plays. Let him float around on that left half wall and let him utilize his shot, because he has one of the most potent shots on the team. You got to make sure he's able to unleash it. And for Sidney Crosby, I think there's just so much more that he can do outside of that net front area. So it comes down to me to Rakell or Bunting. And I know a lot of people are going to automatically go to Bunting, but I want to show you something. And this is especially special for everybody that's watching on Tip of the Iceberg. I'll bring up this overlay that we created this morning. And these graphics are thanks to NHL Edge. If you look at where Rickard Rakell has scored his goals the last two seasons, it's all in the heart of the zone. Between the dots and below the dots is where he has scored over 60% of his goals over the last two seasons. In 2022-23, he scored 17 of those 28 goals between the dots and below the dots. And in 2023-24, 10 of his 15 goals, 66%, were from that same area. So when you look at Rakell, a lot of his production, at least with the Penguins, has been in that net front area. So while it was a little surprising to me saying, oh, maybe Rakell is the net front guy, it kind of makes sense when you dig a little bit deeper. And again, courtesy of NHL Edge for these graphics that you're seeing here on Tip of the Ice-Burgh YouTube. But it was a little surprising to me seeing just how many of those goals were scored in that area.
And this is exactly what you want to see from someone who needs to have that bounce back season. And we're discussing that position battle that there could be for Rakell and Bunting. If they're both able to have this same skill set and or at least show off this same skill set and excel in the same areas, then it's a fair trade-off, you know. And maybe the bonus of having Rakell there is if positions need to change on the fly on a power play, well, he's able to score from elsewhere too. He's able to back up a little further away and still have a good shot. But if that works, that works. I like the idea that they both kind of have that similar style that, I mean, really is going to be needed in that power play unit.
Yeah, the one thing I will say before we move over to talk about Puljujarvi, the one thing I will say that worries me or concerns me about Rickard Rakell is it's not always about scoring goals when you're in that position on the power play. Can you effectively screen the goaltender? Can you stand your ground? Like I said, when you're in there against those oak trees, can you effectively be a pest? We know Michael Bunting can. Can Rickard Rakell do that? And can he stay healthy? Because again, remember, he dealt with that shoulder injury. It cost him over a month of the season last year. And it was something that he's not going to admit to it, but it's something that likely bothered him throughout the remainder of the season as well. So can he go in there and take that physicality? Can he go in there and still remain healthy? And can he go in there and stand his ground and effectively create screens and create opportunities, being the guy in the net front trying to take away lanes and lanes of vision, I should say, for those goaltenders? That's the one thing that worries me, just because in the back of my mind, I haven't seen it yet. So if we see it over the next couple of weeks in these few remaining, because there are not very many remaining preseason games, but if we see it in the next couple of weeks, then, maybe that'll be quelled a little bit. But I still think when it comes to that side of it, Bunting probably does still have the leg up.
Probably. And that's a good problem to have, though. This whole discussion is, good things to be discussing for the Penguins, especially this early on in the preseason and in training camp. There's still all kinds of room to change, adjust on the fly, and see Erik Karlsson come back and what he adds. And then also maybe if Michael Bunting does earn that role, well, then he's rightfully earned it. Yeah,
it's a good problem to have options, but I think we all agree. And until we see it, the biggest thing is going to be the scheme. What does David Quinn cook up? We'll have to wait and see. I'm hoping, again, might be false hope, but I'm hoping the drop pass is gone, or at the very least, they figure out how to do it a little bit more effectively.
I don't know about the drop pass, but I did notice that Jesse Marshall tweeted a video from Kelsey Cermak of the Hockey News that it looks like it's still an umbrella. Now, I don't know anything about schemes really, or not. I don't know a lot about schemes. But if that part is still remaining the same, then we have time to learn, time to grow, and time to change. But also from the video, it still looked like there was a little more urgency, a little more movement of the puck, a little more attention to getting the puck on net and working things around, not just kind of settling into yourself. Otherwise, I don't know. I didn't see anything else from it. So who knows if that drop pass is still there? Probably.
Yeah, I don't think they typically work breakout very much in training camp when it comes to power play. But at the same time, that sense of urgency is something that everybody from the outside looking in can say they needed more of last year. So if they can instill that from an early portion of training camp, that is always going to be a good thing. Let's go over and talk about one forward that made probably the biggest impression when it comes to the first preseason game of the year. Jesse Puljujarvi gets off to a strong start, as strong as you can get, right? A hat trick, even though they lost the game. He puts the puck in the net 3 times, which has always been the biggest bugaboo with his game, is he can do everything. He struggles to finish plays. Well, if he finds that, he'll stay at the NHL level. I think that's plain and simple. But the question that stands right now is, after that 3-goal performance, after what has been reported as a strong start to training camp for the Bison King, where does he stand among Penguins right wingers?
It's tough to say. He's still probably down on the depth chart a little bit, but he's in the matter of a game put himself on notice, put a lot of the team on notice, and is making sure he has everyone's attention. And that's important for a player like him. Did I not say to keep an eye on him this camp and preseason?
You did.
All right. Point one for me. But he's making it a point to make sure everyone keeps an eye on him now. First game is that first impression he's given is that he came back stronger. We think he's finally fully healthy from double hip surgery last offseason. And he's already proving it. He's already showing that he can bring an extra skill set with this finishing ability. And say what you want about a preseason game. The Buffalo Sabres were icing an NHL roster and also potted 7. So we know there was some sort of pedal to the metal from the Buffalo side of things. And Puljujarvi going out with essentially a WHL lineup and scoring 3, not a bad start. Power play goals, not like those matter for him because he's probably not going to be on the power play, but taking advantage of the opportunities that he's given, taking advantage of that open ice and proving his worth to this NHL lineup that he's fighting for. And it's a matter of just making it.
What do you mean it doesn't matter about the power play? He could be Mr. Second Unit, and you're Mr. Second Unit. So he could be
You're
right up
right.
your wheelhouse.
You're damn right. Him and Michael Bunting would wreck shop on that second unit.
There you go. The 30 seconds that they're able to get whenever they have to break the puck in. But when I look at the right side, I mean, it's obvious that Raquel and Rust are up at the top. As long as Raquel's playing on the correct wing, it's Raquel and Rust at the top. And then, it gets jumbled, right? I think we all know that Noel Acciari is making the NHL roster. That much is a given. He's probably starting the year on 4th line right wing. So it's really, and it helps if you can play both sides. It's really that 3rd line right wing spot, and then the 1 or 2, depending on how they structure this roster, the 1 or 2 positions when it comes to healthy scratches. Now, when it comes to who could vie for those, I think it's 4 names vying for 3 spots potentially. It's Rutger McGroarty, who is waivers exempt. Is this where this comes into play? That becomes a question. You have Cody Glass, who has, again, still continued to be somebody who, based on his deployment so far, I'm not exactly sure how they view him. It's Puljujarvi, who we're talking about. And then it's Valtteri Puustinen, who played 52 games last year, scored 20 points, and is expected to make another jump in 2024-25. So with that in mind, Horwat, as we sit here today, which by no means everything can change within the next couple of weeks, but as we sit here today, do you think Puljujarvi breaks camp on the NHL roster?
If I'm saying for right now, yes. It's a tough yes, but he's already got a hat trick under his belt in the first few games. He's got more time to elevate, more time to prove that he's worthy of the spots. I just think if things shake out correctly, there's a good opportunity for him. There's a good chance for him. And the business of the game, I know Rutger McGroarty wanted to play in the NHL. He's going to have to stand out at least once in this preseason to really solidify a spot. And not that he didn't do it so far, not that he hasn't done it so far, but
continuance.
Yeah, keep
staying
that
power throughout these next
pace.
2 weeks. Yeah, big time.
But also, kind of give him the notice. I mean, if you're choosing AHL spots, it's either Manitoba or Wilkes-Barre. So,
yeah.
Pick your poison, Rutger. But at the same time, if the Penguins can also, if this is the direction they need to go in or have to go in, give Rutger that promise of you'll be the first call-up, without doubt. You'll be not even break glass in case of emergency call. No, the second we need a player, a name, you're the first call. You're number 1 on the speed dial. Do people still use speed dial?
No, I don't believe they do. They use Siri at this point, which I'm hoping not all my devices in this room just went off. But I think the thing you're looking at is, look at last year. How long did it take before they had to use that first call up? 4 games.
Yep.
So if Rutger does get sent down, it might be less than a week before he's brought back up. But again, that is a discussion for a little bit later. When it comes to Jesse Puljujarvi, I think it's between him and Valtteri Puustinen, because I truly believe that McGroarty is going to make this team out of camp. I think he has shown a lot so far, and I think he's going to get more opportunities as this camp goes along. And I think the Penguins see him as somebody who they can start out in the bottom six, and he's going to be able to build. He's not somebody they're going to want to sit in the press box. So if he's not going to make their lineup, I have a hard time believing he's going to be that healthy scratch. But honestly, watching what I've seen so far, it feels like Rutger McGroarty is on path to make the roster out of camp. Things can change in the next 2 weeks. So I think that leaves Puljujarvi to contend with Valtteri Puustinen. And now there's a chance that both of them make it and Cody Glass is the odd man out. But again, are you going to stick a $2+ million player on waivers? I don't know. So it comes down to those two. And the question I have for you, Horwat, is who do you think is more likely to make it through waivers? If it's Puljujarvi or Puustinen, and they have to weigh that question, who do they think they can squeak through? Which one of them do you think is more likely to be able to make it and end up in Wilkes-Barre?
I would say Puljujarvi. I think Puustinen might get scooped if he needs to put his way through. Also, I want to see Puustinen make this team because, like you said, he had a pretty good season last year, and it's supposed to only get better this upcoming year. I want to see him make this team just to see what he can do. I think he would be the more likely option to be taken off of waivers, if it came to that. Puljujarvi, because let's consider the fact that he made it to December without a contract in the first place last season.
I think we need to recognize the difference between him at that time and him now.
Yeah, but what I'm going to get at is, though, teams were well aware that I'm assuming teams were still well aware that he could do something in the NHL. He was planning on coming back. It wasn't, this is it, I'm going to sit out for however long, maybe go play in Europe for a year and prove it. No, he wanted to come back to the NHL right away. Not only that, he signed for 2 years. I think what makes him more probable to fly through waivers is the fact that teams didn't give him too many looks until December. And then when he got here and started playing at the NHL level, didn't play very much, got 4 points, I think it was, in 20-something games of a run. And now has then a whole offseason. Didn't have the playoffs to prove anything, didn't have a long run, had an offseason to rest up and heal up. I mean, he's not leaving 31 other teams with a whole lot of, oh, here's what you can do now. So if he needs to be the one that gets sent through, I think he's likely to do it. But then it depends on how many teams look at it as preseason hat trick means what? What does that mean?
What does he put on tape in the next couple of preseason games, which Puljujarvi's not in the lineup tonight. I believe Puustinen is. I'll double check that.
And then that would help. That would probably honestly help Puljujarvi's case of being able to fly through waivers. It's tough. There might be a lot of waiver movement from the Penguins this year because of the amount of NHL talent they have, depth NHL talent. But I think he'd be the most likely one to make it through. I think Cody Glass might get scooped up even with that money. Puustinen's a budding great player. I don't think you can move Noel Acciari, so don't worry about that one.
Yeah. The other name I want to mention, because Puustinen is not in the NHL lineup or in the preseason lineup tonight, excuse me, but Sam Poulin is. And there's a lot of people that are saying they think Poulin, if he gets put on waivers, might get scooped. Do you think that that's the case? And do you think, if so, the Penguins are aware of that and might actually force Poulin onto the roster because they really want to see what he has before trying to put him on waivers and potentially losing him for nothing?
I didn't even know he was waivers eligible. That's how long I've been waiting for this man. That's tough because that's really tough because on one hand, whenever I saw the Rutger McGroarty trade go down, my first thought was it was Poulin going the other way. I wasn't expecting it to be Jagr. So maybe that means if Sam Poulin needs to fly through waivers, it's likely he gets taken because just in my head, that's a player teams would be interested in. That's a face that other teams might believe can really help their roster in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
Especially some of those like Anaheim, not so much Montreal, but those Anaheims, those rebuilding teams that just need faces, just need players. And maybe he goes there in a Daniel Sprong type. I know Sprong was a trade, but goes to Anaheim. Hey, look what this kid can do. And then finds big money elsewhere.
Yeah, fresh start, more opportunity, potentially on the horizon for Sam Poulin. I think that's an interesting case because you get to roster cut down day, and there's a lot of names that get thrown on waivers, typically like 4 or 5 for each team. The Penguins do have a lot of them, and Poulin right now, not waivers exempt, or not now, not ever anymore, going to be waivers exempt. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. But I mean, the crux of this conversation was Jesse Puljujarvi. Got to keep doing it, right? You got to keep showing it because a lot of this is, it was a great hat trick, but you can't earn a roster spot on September 22nd. You just can't, or 21st, or whenever the 21st was the game. You can't earn a roster spot that early in camp. You can lose a roster spot that early in camp, but I think what we saw from him over the weekend is he is firmly in this conversation, and it's a matter of, can he continue to outperform? Can he continue to put together a good camp, and can he jump guys like Puustinen? Can he force the hand of the Penguins to say, hey, start Rucker in the AHL because we need to see more of the Bison King as he goes by. So it's going to be a fun couple of weeks here. And I think that is turning into one of the more interesting position battles and lineup battles that the Penguins currently have. Let's close things out with a little discussion about a Penguins legend, a legend that has found himself at the top of headlines a lot over the calendar year of 2024. I mean, the year started with, Jagr mania starting to kick back up in Pittsburgh, the jersey retirement ceremony, the bobblehead fiasco, him coming to Pittsburgh on multiple occasions and eating PPG Paints Arena out of ice cream at the suite level. All of that combined with the fact that this past week he has had multiple stories come out about him. He is expected first and foremost to retire from professional hockey at the conclusion of this season that he's playing with the Kladno Knights. Now, that is per Bleacher Report first, and then by Rob Rossi of The Athletic, who also reported that. Again, expected to doesn't mean he's going to, because we all know Jaromir Jagr and his infinite wisdom always continues to play hockey further than any of us ever expected. So, first story of the week, Jagr expected to retire. I know your initial thought was skepticism. Are you still skeptic after about a week and a couple of different stories that have come out?
I will still believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
For one.
I think that's what Evgeny Malkin said too. I think, okay, we'll see what happens, right? It's Jagr. We know that he could just be like, you know what? I own the team. It's not like they're going to cut me. So maybe I do want to play another season.
Fun weekend for Malkin too. Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it, but also between I believe Bleacher Report said it was his agent that started it. Rob Rossi followed it up. And then if you look at, I think it was Kladno's Instagram. If you look at Jagr's Instagram, it's, first of all, an incredible place. But also there were some hints of, there was one photo, I forget who put it out on Instagram first, but it ended up on Jagr's account. And there's a little, he's like getting onto a subway, and there's a little like piece of paper on the ground that says the last ride or something like that. So I think that's the one that really started pushing me in the direction of, oh, this might be it, because that sort of note can do a lot. Yes, this little thing says, little piece of paper outside the subway, 68 last dance. So something to be said about that to watch for and keep an eye on. If I'll still believe it when I see it, but it looks like signs are pointing to this will be it.
Yeah, I mean, Jagr is 52 years old. Now, he is in better shape than most 52 years old. I'd be cautious to say, but also feel pretty confident in saying he's probably in better shape than 98% of other 52-year-olds, but he's playing in his 37th pro season. We talk about Sidney Crosby at 37, being able to still do it at the age of 37. Jagr is playing 37 years in professional hockey. It's ridiculous. I mean, 2 Stanley Cup championships, both with the Penguins, 5-time Art Ross Trophy winner, all with the Penguins, 1998-99 Hart Trophy winner as a member of the Penguins. And on top of that, 8-time All-Star, 3-time Lester B. Pearson Award winner, Masterton Trophy winner, 2nd all-time in points, 4th all-time in goals, and 1 Mid-Atlantic Regional Emmy Award for his producer role on his jersey retirement ceremony. So adding it to the accolades, that is the second piece of news about Jaromir Jagr this past week, is that he is now an Emmy winner for his role in his own jersey retirement ceremony.
I don't know how many like Emmy trophies they hand out per award. I don't know if it is just one or if like kind of the whole crew gets something. I hope, because the Penguins and their video crew have plenty of Emmys, I hope they sent that singular Emmy to Jagr just to add to that trophy case.
I think multiple people get the Emmys. Anybody that is listed whenever the award comes out gets an Emmy award. So I hope they don't send it to Jagr. I hope they just call him, say, hey, we're just going to put it in your old house.
Yep.
You know, alongside all your other trophies, we're just going to put it up on the mantle there, and you can grab it when you come back to Pittsburgh, because we all know he's coming back to Pittsburgh. Obviously, Kevin Acklin, around that jersey retirement time, was saying, oh, you know, we've reached out. We want to have him with the Penguins in an official capacity of some sort once he's done in Czechia. And if this is it, maybe he's around Pittsburgh, which is only a good thing, right? Because if they're not good, then, hey, at the very least, you have Jagr, which is what it was last year. You know, those were some of the most memorable moments of the season, which says a lot about the team on the ice. But if they are good, then you get playoffs with Jagr and Lemieux chilling in the suite, celebrating goals from Crosby and Malkin. So either way, it's a win-win for the Penguins if they get Jagr over here more often.
It would be. And even if they don't get him over, let's say he wants to stay in Czechia for just to live, if his playing days are over, European scout. Well, that would help. I think there has been few that have seen as much talent as Jagr has over his years. Exactly. And that's kind of, if they're looking for any sort of official role, because, I mean, there's plenty of official roles in the front office that he could take and that he would be worthy of, because he's the one of the few players that could probably take up any role in hockey and succeed, because he's been here for so long. He's probably seen every level of the sport. So it's pretty much up to him what he would want to take, assuming he doesn't want to take Kyle Dubas's job.
Yeah, I think that would be a little bit much. But I think there's one question that remains when we talk about Jaromir Jagr. Obviously, the Emmy Award is a cool story. Obviously, the potential retirement, which we'll talk more about his retirement if and when it happens. And I do say if and when it happens. But the one question that comes is, if and when it does, do you think the Hockey Hall of Fame waives their 3-year waiting period for Jaromir Jagr and inducts him directly after he finishes his playing career?
They absolutely should. There's no doubt that they should. Considering some of the names that they've done it for, you could argue, the longevity has lent a lot to his legend. Considering some of the names, you could argue Jagr's just better. And not just by NHL numbers, but by the numbers he's put up throughout his career, and playing at the international stage on multiple occasions, playing in multiple different professional leagues around the world, and being, for the better part of 20 years, 2 decades almost, at the NHL level, one of the best players in the league. I know that that's where a lot of the focus goes for the Hockey Hall of Fame. It's no doubt in my mind that he deserves that waiting period waived, especially considering he's already kind of been, you don't want to say out of the league, or out of professional hockey, but out of the NHL for how many years already? Essentially count that toward there's your 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you look at his resume, you can stop at saying 2nd all-time in points to Wayne Gretzky, right? You could stop at saying 4th all-time in goals behind Gordie Howe, Wayne Gretzky, and Alex Ovechkin, and just say, all right, well, that guy deserves to be, 1, a first ballot Hall of Famer, and 2, to be in the discussion for waiving that 3-year period. Now, you mentioned his name alongside those other names that the period was waived for. There's actually a list of 10. Now, we went through this list before, and a lot of these names, most people are going to know, even if they are just strictly Penguins fans or new age Penguins fans. You've heard these names before, right? 1947, everybody's heard of Dit Clapper. Everybody's heard of Dit Clapper. So he was the first one that they waived it for. But then going through the rest of the list, obviously, Maurice Rocket Richard in 61, Ted Lindsay in 66, Red Kelly in 69, Terry Sawchuk in 1971. Both Jean Beliveau and Gordie Howe had it waived for them in 1972. Now, Gordie Howe, being a lot similar to Jaromir Jagr, went on to come out of retirement the next year, but I digress to that point. 79, it was Bobby Orr. 1997, it was Mario Lemieux. And 1999, it was Wayne Gretzky. Now, that last one is important for a couple of reasons. And for one, it's important because after Gretzky was inducted in 1999, directly after he retired, the Hockey Hall of Fame Board of Governors eliminated the right from the selection committee to make this exemption and allow people to skip the 3-year waiting period. So, according to the Hockey Hall of Fame, that right doesn't exist. That possibility doesn't exist. But whenever you talk about somebody the stature of Jagr, I think there's a chance they might say, this is the one exception. It would just have to go through the Board of Governors and not simply the selection committee.
Yeah, and looking at the Hockey Hall of Fame website, they say they are keeping that 3-year waiting period mandatory, except under certain humanitarian circumstances. Now, I think we all know exactly what that means.
Yeah.
But is Jagr being humanitarian enough by continuing to play to keep his team around?
Not only that, I mean, think about what he's done being what's the word I'm looking for? Spokesperson, being a figurehead for hockey in Czechia as a whole, a team that just won the World Championships. A country that has provided us with one of the best goal scorers of this current generation, and David Pastrnak.
Yeah.
Jagr, in large part, paved the way for some of these guys. And that, I think, has a huge effect on hockey. Now, it's not going to go under the one exemption that they have listed on their website, but I think this becomes a much bigger discussion with the Board of Governors there, which is why I think once he retires, especially if it's after this year, and for the reason that you outlined earlier as well, Horwat, and I agree wholeheartedly, he has been playing for the love of the game. He has not been playing, he's been playing in his hometown team that he owns for the love of the game, just because he loves to play it. I don't think they're going to sit there and say, well, that's professional hockey, so you know what, we're going to ding you, and you're going to have to wait another 3 years. If he does, he does. He's going in 3 years, no matter what. He's first ballot Hall of Famer, irregardless. But I think it should be waived for a guy of his stature. Now, again, will it be waived for anybody else going forward? Perhaps not. But I think the fact is, of all the players in the league now, Jagr is the one playing that predates that ruling. So give it to Jagr. He started his professional career in 1988 with Kladno back in Czechia. 1990, he started in the NHL. That ruling didn't come down until 99, where he was pretty much done with the Penguins at that time after a couple more years after that. But he had done the bulk majority of his work, we'll say. Hart Trophy, Art Ross's, Stanley Cups. That's where a lot of his hardware comes from. So I think he should be grandfathered in to that ruling, to be completely honest.
Oh, grandfathering in is a good point. Grandfathering in is a good point. You would have to you'd have to essentially know that he was going to get it then, though, I think. That's kind of where it gets iffy. Like, were you aware in 1999 that Jagr was going to get this sort of exceptional status? You may have.
Yeah.
You may have, considering some of the accolades, stats, and awards. I don't think anyone knew he would still be playing in the year 2024.
No. Nobody thought he'd be playing to the age of 52 years old. I think especially, sure, we saw Gordie Howe play into his 50s, but he's Gordie Howe. He's Mr. Hockey. We didn't think somebody, especially in this day and age, the way the game has changed and how much more physical, I don't want to say more physical because the rules have kind of helped with that, but, somebody the age of 52 going out there and listen, he's got a goal and an assist in 3 games played already, so it's not like he's not contributing over there in Kladno. But no, I think that this is the one player that I think they'd waive it for, and I think they do at the end of this year if he is indeed done.
Yeah, if he is. And I could also, I don't know what kind of pull they're switching. It's what's his name? Lanny McDonald is out as I forget what role he held. Yeah. It's going to be Mike Gardner. I don't know what kind of pull that position holds. If the game continues to progress the way it is, and if Sidney Crosby, maybe Alex Ovechkin, Connor McDavid keeps up this sort of pace, maybe even Austin Matthews, if those names continue that sort of pace, I could see them getting rid of this thing completely for certain big stars. Again, it doesn't matter that much really, because that essentially the countdown clock starts whenever a player of that stature announces their retirement. But I mean, like I said, I don't know what kind of pull that Mike Gardner can bring. Maybe he has some talking to do about it. I don't know how close he is with Jagr. They both played for the Capitals. That's a start. But maybe he tries to pull some power in his new position as well to sort of, I don't want to say eliminate this exception, this sort of waiting period mandate,
but create an exception to the exception.
Yeah, and then broaden it a bit because certain names also might deserve it down the line. We don't know what still is to come for Connor McDavid. Like, let's just be honest.
Yeah. True. I mean, this is a conversation we'll have to revisit the end of the season, if and when. Again, if and when being the operative 3 terms here. If and when Jaromir Jagr calls it quits on his long 37-year professional hockey career. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Tip of the Ice-Burgh. Penguins in preseason action later this evening against the Buffalo Sabres. In the words of the legendary Mike Lang, it is a hockey night in Pittsburgh. Excited to see what those boys can do on the ice in the second preseason game of this season. But that's going to do it for this episode. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe on YouTube at Tip of the Ice-Burgh, or you can find us anywhere you get your podcast from. We'll see you guys next time.